Okay, picture this. When you think about owning a car dealership, what actually comes to mind? Right. You're probably imagining clean rows of gleaming luxury SUVs, a high-pressure sales floor just buzzing with energy, and a steady stream of passive, almost subscription-like revenue hitting your bank account every single month. For a lot of people, it's basically the ultimate crowning jewel of local business success. You picture the local car dealer as the richest guy in town, kicking back and retiring at 50. But here is the thing. Behind the neon signage and those balloon-arched forecourts lies a hyper-leveraged, brutally thin financial reality that would honestly give most Wall Street investors an absolute heart attack. The picture in your head, it's largely an illusion. And in this explainer, we are going to break down exactly how this business actually works beneath the surface.
To really understand the reality here, you've got to start with this specific number, $2,247. That microscopic number is the actual front-end gross profit an average franchise dealership makes on a brand new domestic car. And here's the absolute kicker. That is before they pay a single dollar in floor plan interest, staff wages, insurance, advertising, or facility costs. Think about that. If you sell a car for $10,000, and literally everything goes absolutely perfectly, your dealership might only clear between $100 and $250. The car sale itself is essentially just the entry point. It is absolutely not the actual profit center. We are talking about average net margins sitting razor thin, somewhere between 1% and 2.5%. Yet, the average revenue per franchise dealership store sits at a massive $83.9 million annually. That is a mountain of cash moving through the building. But it takes an enormous, heavy, fixed-cost space to run a facility capable of generating that kind of volume. So that highly visible transaction, the actual car you drive off the lot, is priced incredibly competitively. So this brings us to the fundamental question of this whole explainer. If the car itself is not the profit center, where is all that money actually coming from? How does an industry operating on margins this microscopic produce some of the wealthiest families in almost every town in America? Well, the real money is hidden somewhere else entirely. And figuring out where it lives tells you everything about why this business requires such extraordinary capital to survive.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the business model, the 3 doors to entry.
So let's compare the first 2 doors, the 2 franchise models. On one side, you have a mainstream franchise, like a Ford or a Toyota. This gives you massive volume and the backing of national advertising, but you surrender almost total operational control. The manufacturer literally dictates your showroom tiles and pushes inventory onto your lot that you are legally required to accept. Now, on the other side, the luxury franchise flips that equation. Your volume drops, but your margins swell to an average gross profit of over $5,600 per vehicle. The catch there? Building a facility that actually meets those insane luxury standards costs dramatically more upfront. Then you've got door number 3, the independent used car lot. Here, you escape the manufacturer's oversight entirely. It's basically just you, a chain-link fence, and an auction account. Sure, it is by far the cheapest way in, but it's also the most vulnerable. Why? Because independent lots have to secure their own inventory financing at much, much worse rates. And crucially, they do not get a highly lucrative warranty repair service department. They average only around $1,500 profit per car. So, before you've even really started, the economics tell you that the franchise model, despite all its strict rules, wins over time because it relies on multiple stacked profit engines.
Moving on to Section 2, Cost Structure, the Cost of Admission.
Get ready for this. You are looking at a staggering $5 to $10 million required just to open the doors of a standard franchise. And I mean, not to get rich, literally just to turn the open sign on. The franchise fee alone sits between $500,000 and $2 million. Then you need 4 to 8 acres of prime land. A basic pre-engineered metal structure, that'll run you $120 to $150 per square foot. But a luxury concrete tilt-up build, try $250 to $450 per square foot. Add in hundreds of thousands for tech, legal fees, and staffing, you get the idea. You've spent millions before you've even bought a single vehicle to sell.
Which naturally brings us to how dealers actually afford to fill those massive lots. Spoiler alert, almost none of that inventory is bought with cash. Instead, they use something called floor plan financing. This is basically a revolving credit line where a bank, or sometimes the manufacturer's own lending arm, fronts 95 to 100% of the cost for a new vehicle. So the dealer holds the metal on the lot, but the lender holds the financial risk. The second that car sells, the loan on that specific vehicle is paid off immediately. But here is the massive trap. That inventory sitting out there shining in the sun, it is not neutral. It is an actively bleeding liability. Between the interest, the insurance, lot maintenance, and depreciation, holding a single vehicle costs a dealer $40 to $85 every single day. Literally tick-tock. This is exactly why dealers get so incredibly desperate to move metal at the end of the month. Think about it. They are bleeding up to $85,000 for absolutely nothing if just 100 cars slip past their average turn time by only 10 days. No extra revenue, that's just the cost of cars sitting totally still.
Let's dive into Section 3, Profitability, the hidden profit engines.
When you break down the sources of a dealership's gross profit, the reality is kind of mind-blowing. The vehicle sale itself, that front-end transaction, it's a tiny 13% sliver of the pie. The real money is actually hiding in the back of the building. The finance and insurance office generates 37% of the profit, and fixed operations, which is the service and parts department, pulls in a massive 50% of the gross profit.
So let's look a little closer at that finance and insurance, or F&I office. When you sit down in that little room to sign the paperwork, that office literally makes money out of thin air. Here's how. The bank gives the dealer a wholesale interest rate called the buy rate. Let's say it's 5%. Well, the dealer is legally allowed to mark that up to 7% and just pocket the spread. That spread is called the dealer reserve. Then they add on extended warranties and gap insurance, which carry brutal markups of 50 to 200%. And a well-run F&I department will attach these extras to 84% of all deals. It's essentially an entire second business quietly running inside the first one.
But without a doubt, the absolute king of profitability is the service department. And this metric right here, 115%, is the industry's holy grail. It's known as the service absorption rate. It measures what percentage of the dealership's entire fixed overhead, we're talking rent, utilities, salaries, the whole shebang, is covered purely by the profit generated in parts and service. The target is 115%. Why? Because once you hit 100%, every single car sold out front on the lot becomes pure unencumbered profit. The mechanics in the back have literally already paid for the entire building's existence.
All right, Section 4, Operational Challenges, Traps, and Risks.
Now, sophisticated dealers use clever accounting mechanisms to survive cash crunches. They fight back using LIFO accounting, which stands for last in, first out. Because cars tend to get more expensive over time with inflation, assuming you sold your newest, most expensive car first artificially inflates your paper cost of goods sold. What does that do? It shrinks your reported taxable profit. This effectively acts as a massive interest-free loan from the tax authorities, letting dealers defer hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax liabilities just to preserve their everyday liquidity.
But, there is a severe liquidity trap that even clever math cannot solve. It's called the new dealer trap. We established that service departments are the golden goose, right? Well, they rely on a returning customer base. A brand new dealership simply doesn't have one yet. Industry data shows that for the first 12 to 18 months, their service bays operate at only 30 to 40% capacity. This temporarily turns the department that is supposed to be the highest margin engine in the entire building into a massive cost center, right at the exact moment when the business is most financially vulnerable.
Let's get into Section 5, Psychology and Strategy, the ultimate extraction machine. You have to beware the illusion of the invoice price. Seriously, manufacturers intentionally inflate the invoice price by 1 to 3%. The dealer pays that inflated number up front, sure, but after the car is actually sold, the manufacturer quietly refunds that percentage right back to the dealer in a check. It's called dealer holdback. You can negotiate a dealer down to the exact penny of the invoice price, feel like an absolute genius thinking you won, and they will still walk away with a guaranteed hidden $1,500 profit that you never saw on any piece of paper.
And if you try to do the math on them, they will counter with the four-square sheet. It is a negotiation tool designed specifically to scramble your brain. It tangles your trade-in value, your purchase price, your down payment, and your monthly payment all together in one confusing grid. Because most buyers fixate purely on the monthly payment, the dealer can generously give you a higher trade-in value, but then quietly stretch your loan from 60 months out to 84 months. Your monthly payment stays the same, so you're happy, but your total interest paid balloons massively, completely protecting the dealership's margin.
But hold on to your hats, because the ultimate boss-level wealth extraction happens long after you drive away. It is almost unbelievable, but some dealership owners don't just take a one-time commission on those extended warranties. They actually set up their very own offshore reinsurance captive companies in tax-advantaged places like Turks and Caicos. Your warranty premium gets routed straight there. If your car never breaks down, the dealer keeps the entire underwriting profit tax-free under specialized provisions, compounding it quietly in the stock market. It is brilliant and totally invisible to the consumer.
To survive massive, industry-shaking risks like the 2024 CDK global ransomware attack that literally paralyzed 15,000 dealerships for days, or manufacturers suddenly forcing millions of dollars in EV upgrades, the pros scale up. A single, standalone store is just too vulnerable today. But a multi-store group, they consolidate their HR and accounting, they diversify their brand risk, and crucially, they feed a giant captive insurance pool that eventually generates investment returns that absolutely dwarf the profit of the physical showrooms themselves.
Which brings us to our final lesson, the real extraction.
On paper, the owner's official salary usually looks surprisingly modest, maybe $112,000 to $177,000 a year. But the real wealth is a complex, multi-layered extraction machine. You have to stack their salary, the distributions of the dealership's profits, the premium rent they charge their own dealership for the land they own under a separate LLC, and the tax-sheltered dividends flowing from that offshore reinsurance company. And this brings us to the final fundamental truth of the automotive retail experience. That shiny car on the showroom floor, it was never really the product, it was merely the bait. In any complex industry, the real profit is almost always hidden in the paperwork, the services, and the structures the consumer never thinks to look at. The real wealth in this hyper-leveraged industry is completely invisible from the street, which really makes you wonder, what other everyday businesses are operating a